welcome to today's webinar, Breakthrough Greenhouse Production Bottlenecks. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Dale Sleppy with Velosio. I'll be your host for today's presentation. Todd Waterman is our primary speaker today. Todd is a solution architect with Velosio. He has over 19 years of experience in technology and business solution software. In addition, Todd has an extensive background in the agriculture industry, working with and for companies to solve complex business issues of growing and selling plants. Before I turn it over to Todd, I want to give a brief introduction to Velosio. Velosio is committed to helping our clients derive greater business value from technology, whether tech clients are looking for fresh ideas in innovation or just a simplified path to the next step in their digital. We have a strong, experienced team that works with our horticultural clients to help them centralize their data on the Microsoft platform, so information is easily shared across the business. This allows for more effective and more confident decisions that improve product throughput, increase sales productivity, and profitability, in building customer satisfaction. On this slide, you can see a list of many of the core solutions with familiar interfaces that we provide to our customers to help them simplify and accelerate their digital journeys. Velosio is one of the largest and most recognized Microsoft Dynamics partners with 30 years of experience in the field, over 320 staff serving thousands of customers. We've won numerous Microsoft and industry awards over the years in recognition of our success, but the most important reward we receive is to see the success of our clients after a completed project. At the end of today's presentations, we'll provide information on how you can reach out to us when you're ready to discuss how you can leverage technology to meet your corporate goals. Now I'd like to turn it over to Todd, who's going to share insights on how you can break through bottlenecks in your production process. Go ahead, take it away, Todd.
Thank you, Dale. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me speak. I appreciate it. I know that everybody's busy. So what bottlenecks, right? We have bottlenecks in production. Like when I first hear bottleneck in production, I think possibly, the amount of material coming into the planting line is too much. Think about your product movement, things going on around the property. There's a lot of bottlenecks there, right? But I'm talking about a different kind of bottleneck. And I think this particular bottleneck is probably the biggest bottleneck in the industry. And that is disparate systems. So in our experience, almost every single client we go into has disparate systems. And what that means is you have several different systems, right? Very common that the plant production is maybe in Excel or another little smaller application that just does the plant production. And then the accounting and orders are in QuickBooks. You might have other greenhouse information, environment information, and other spreadsheets, right? So basically it means information is spread out and not all in one place. And so to me, that is a very huge bottleneck, because not only does it slow down the process of information, but it also slows down process of information for your customers. Think about it. When your production is in spreadsheets and your orders are in QuickBooks, how can you ever trust any number? Or do you ever even know the number? A lot of our customers, when we started with them, sent their availability out on Mondays. So, as soon as they press send on the email, the availability is not up to date anymore, right? So that is a very common thing. We've seen a lot of amazing things as far as disparate systems of what people are dealing with today. And what is most important is access to information. So access to information for sales, access to information for production, right? Because production needs to know how many sales orders there are. How quickly are you getting your sales orders in? Sales needs to know what the inventory is. So as you know as well as I, there's a lot of things happening outside. There's plants being planted, there's plants being dumped, moved, updated, And how quickly does that information get into the system so sales can truly trust the number? And that's right. Access to information is one thing. Updated, accurate information is another. You know, I spent 19 years at a nursery where we really couldn't trust the numbers, and we really did have a system that had a quote unquote live availability, right? But you know as well as I, it's garbage in, garbage out. So our customer service people were really conditioned to not trust the number in the system. So they asked every time. As a matter of fact, what we used to do is actually print the order, highlight with a highlighter of which items they had questions on where they didn't trust the availability number. Then they walked outside, put it in a box outside the propagation manager's office, and waited till she, a couple times a day, went through those papers, and then she emailed each customer service rep whether or not they could enter that order, right? So that there's a serious bottleneck. That doesn't really have to do with production, but it's all related. Data entry. How easy is it for your production people to get data entered in the system? How easy is it for your order entry people? We have customers, when we walked in, they used an Access database and 4 different spreadsheets they had to look at to actually enter an order. So think about that bottleneck. Think of how difficult it is to train new employees. How easy is it for them to enter the data? Are you still using a pen and paper? You know, if production is out there using a pen and paper, one thing, that's one point of failure, right? It's on a piece of paper. It could get wet, you know how dirty and grungy it is in the greenhouse. But also someone has to take that piece of paper, and you got to count on them to actually, that the person wrote the numbers down correctly. And then you got to count on the data entry person to be able to enter those numbers correctly. So you can see there's 2 points of failure there. And also tribal knowledge. Think of how much knowledge is in the head of your long-term employees. That is great because they know what's going on. They know how things work, but what if something happens to them? People retire, you know? So really what do you do with that tribal knowledge? Where is that? How do you get that out of their heads and into a system or something, okay? So what do we do as Velosio? What have we done to solve some of these quote unquote bottlenecks? Enter the Power Platform, Microsoft Power Platform. So what this is, and if you've watched some of my other webinars, you've seen me touch on Power BI, which is part of the Power Platform. We're going to be going over some newer things today, but what the Microsoft Power Platform is, it's a one low-code platform that spans Office 365, Dynamics 365, Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, and standalone applications. Really capitalize that standalone application. That means like any application that you're using, right? So yes, it's compatible with Dynamics 365, which is a product that we sell. It's all compatible. It's actually part of Microsoft Office, all of these little programs. But I think most importantly, it can work with any other system. So every company has bottlenecks of things that maybe are very proprietary to them. And so with these different programs, you can actually create your own application, your own solutions. So first of all, there's 4 parts of the Power Platform. Power BI, that's business analytics, and we've seen some of that before. We have Power Apps, which is really what I'm going to focus on today. And Power Apps is an application that you can actually create applications, right? Apps. Power Automate, that's workflow automation. We're going to get into that in a later date. And there's a newer piece too called Power Virtual Agents. And you've all seen Power Virtual Agents. A good example of that is I just went to the vet with my dog, and when you pull up now through this COVID time, actually pull up and there's a sign there and says what to text, the lane that you're in and that you've arrived, your what number parking spot. I'm having a conversation and being checked in, texting back and forth, but it's not even a real person. It's actually a Power Virtual Agent that is actually chatting. Or sometimes when you're on websites and you know you want to chat with someone and ask some questions, a lot of times that's not even a real person. So that's pretty exciting. Some of the things that works with all of these applications, there's a common data service. Now, what is a common data service? That's really Microsoft gives you a place to put this information. because maybe it's information that doesn't really need to be imported or into any system. Maybe it's some other, could be quality control. It could be your plant trials in an application. You don't really need that information in your business system. Well, you can leave it in the common data service. But also, we could have information in the common data service and actually replicate it with our system as well, or even the system that you have. Also, there's data connectors, many data connectors. So with the data connectors, right now there's all built-in connectivity to 300 plus different cloud services, files, databases, web APIs. Really what this means is all parts of the Power Platform have already 300 plus connectors to connect to different things. It could be connected to an Excel spreadsheet. It could be connected to QuickBooks, what have you. So you have all of these connectors, and all of the Power Platform is able to use all those. There's seamless hybrid connectivity, whether you have your server on your on-premise at your location, or if you had it up in the cloud. And you can also build custom connectors. We've had clients that needed a connection to something where Microsoft hasn't created one yet, and we are able to also do that. Let's talk a little bit about PowerApps. So this is some screenshots of PowerApps, and what you can see is what they've done is created an application that average users can have access to, right? You don't necessarily have to be a programmer. As a matter of fact, Microsoft has a whole program called citizen developers, and what they mean by citizen developers is they're creating programs like this so average power users in your company or companies like ours have whole practices of teams using PowerApps. But what does that do for you? PowerApps by the numbers. These are all numbers from Microsoft, and they say that it's 188% return on investment over 3 years by using PowerApps. It's also a 74% reduction in app development costs. So what does that mean? Nobody, in years past, you wouldn't really think, hey, we have this proprietary process and we could really use an app or a mobility function, but they would never think of actually having their own app written. You're looking through the market trying to find something that works for you, and you know how proprietary this industry is. One app that works for one company doesn't necessarily work for all. So this really makes it able to fill some of these bottlenecks with applications that you can actually have custom written. And it's a 74% reduction in development costs because it can be rapidly deployed because of the interfaces they created. And they say low to no code is a term they use, which means you're not actually typing code for this. Like I said, it's a point and click environment. Also, they find that, and this is across all industries, that there's usually a 3.2 hours of line of business employee productivity improvement per week. So what I wanted to do now is just share a couple stories of some of these bottlenecks that we've fixed for customers. So I'm actually going to tell you a couple actual stories and show some pictures of some of the things we've developed. This first story is very interesting. So this was a customer that actually was talking to us about getting a whole new quote unquote ERP system, you know, our Dynamics 365 Business Central, because they were using the typical spreadsheets and QuickBooks. But their biggest bottleneck and their biggest problem is they just received 30 new Home Depot stores. And this grower grows tropical plants, so the shelf life is much longer. So their salesmen actually go into the store and look to see what's needed. And they would actually create the orders for the stores really on site in the store. And so originally what they did is they actually had just a spreadsheet on cell phones. So if you can imagine, if you've ever tried to use Excel on your phone, it's not that fun scrolling around trying to find the different cells, but they did actually do that. And what was most complex about it is not only do they need to see what the availability is that they can order to fill their stores, but really they you know how it is. You don't want one salesman to buy all of or to take all of the availability. So what they did is they set up different criteria and made sure this is a process that they spent a few hours every morning going through what the inventory is and basically on a spreadsheet splitting up which salesman can have what, right? Because if you're a salesman and you got a much larger volume store. You don't want some larger volume or lower volume store salesman to be able to take the availability from that. So in other words, there's a lot of criteria to figure out what availability each salesman can have. So what we did is we created an application, and so the users were sales reps, and they actually bring their own devices. So whether it's on an Android or iPhone, they use this. So this is a couple screenshots of it, just shows a little bit about the order header and the order lines. I got a little bit more pictures of this that shows when they enter. But so what we did is we created a back end to this. So one thing I failed to mention is, remember, they were originally looking to buy Business Central, but their biggest bottleneck was this mobility area. So what happened was we ended up kind of flipping the script, and we really solved this problem first. So they are still using QuickBooks, and they still are using spreadsheets to do their production, but all of the in-store ordering is done with this application. And now this is the back end of the Power App that we created for them. And remember when I was talking about all the criteria they have to go through to figure out what availability that they really open up to each salesman? Well, all of that is done in here. So they're able to import an Excel sheet of what their inventory is, and then we basically wrote the algorithm that figures out who can have access to what availability. So it's not only an app that is, on the phone where the end user are using, but there's a whole back end here. And this is all the products that they have that they imported. And they can also review all of the orders, because that was a key requirement as well, is that once the salesmen actually put their orders, they didn't want them to really capture the availability. They wanted to review it first. Maybe they ordered too much of something, they fat fingered a number. So we have this whole review area that we can go into to review all the sales orders and then actually post them into QuickBooks. So I think that's a really, really neat story. And there's probably lots of you out there that maybe there's other solutions, other problems that you have, maybe that don't even need to be in your main system, but you do have to keep track of the information, and it does, quote unquote, get rid of a bottleneck. Well, have you ever thought about having an application just developed to do it? You can develop, there is so many templates inside of PowerApps. Even if you we do have customers that have really advanced IT teams, or have people devoted to that, not just a IT contractor. And they write apps on there, everything from, a open house registration app, where users come in and they register for their open house. You can think of a lot of different things. I mentioned before, plant trials. A lot of times the plant trial information doesn't need to be in your business system, but it is something that you're trying to keep track of. And what are they writing it down? Is it in a spreadsheet? I think that you can probably think about a lot of proprietary things that you do as a company that something like this would help with. And because it all comes down to that data entry, how quick is what's going to happen in production going to get back to the salespeople? So what can be faster than actually an application like this where you're entering it in and it replicates into your system? But again, what's really special about this story is that they did not have to buy a complete ERP system from us to access this functionality. Remember, this is all just part of Microsoft Office. All right. Okay, here's another example. So this was another big box grower that had hundreds of stores. And they actually, because of the fact that as well as I, when you're coming out of things come in so quickly to the dock and leave so quickly, how do you even receive it, right? This particular customer is the product would come out so quick, be delivered, cross-docked, and need to go to a store. They didn't even have time to really receive it, because what was most important to them is the speed of getting it to the store. So they were really missing a lot of data. So what does that mean? They had hundreds of stores that they don't really know what has been delivered and really what is in each store. So this particular app, they actually use a Zebra TC25, and some of the salesmen use Androids. And we use it as scanning. The Android can use its camera as a scanner. This particular Zebra has a built-in scanner. But what's special about this too is we actually print receipts. and there's offline capabilities. So here's a couple screenshots of what we've done, where they have the home screen here saying whether they're picking up or delivering. And even this one thing gave them visibility they've never had. And think about that. If you delivered to 300 stores and didn't really know what was in the store until they sent the EDI file saying what has sold, that's a tough thing. How are you going to figure out what needs to be sent the next day, right? So all with this app, they're able to do this now. One other example of the Power Platform is because it's a Microsoft product, it's part of Microsoft Office. So this is a perfect example right here. Everybody knows what's going on with COVID. There's hundreds of templates inside of PowerApps and all the Power Platform to really get you started in other examples. This is one, a return to work template that they created and just for free put out there. So any company can download and install this app in their Power App environment, and really was set to, like you can see right here on the left, get a day pass. They come in, they go through this questionnaire, take their temperature, those things, and basically it's all captured in the app to really show that you're following procedures. So the reason I show this is just because of the power of that this is something maybe companies would love to have. Well, this is something Microsoft just provides to you for free because you're in this Microsoft Office family. So really what the moral of the story is, these days, it is not astronomical to create your own apps. The price has come down so much, the technology has come so far. So I really encourage you to think about that, think about different things that you have in your company that are bottlenecks like I described. Think about things that you possibly would want to do. Maybe you don't need a new business system yet, but maybe just an application like this could really, really increase your productivity. Well, thank you for all listening to me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Dale. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Todd. And as you can see on this slide here, we'd like to open this opportunity to you to start a conversation. There's Todd's contact information. You can reach out to him and or you can visit our website at velosio.com to learn more about not just greenhouse solutions, but all the technology that Velosio can help you deploy to meet your needs, and your journey to your digital next. I'm gonna end today's webinar, and again, thank you, Todd. Thank you in the audience for joining, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks, and have a great day.